Good morning. Come on in, we got plenty of room. Well, it's a minute late, so maybe we'll start with the announcements now. What do you think? I'd like to welcome all of you here who were brave enough to come out in this cold weather to worship here in house. I welcome those at home who were smart enough to stay home and call in. So welcome to Holmeswood this morning. If this is your first time visiting us, we have ways you can contact us. There's the QR code. It's also in your bulletin. If you can give us a little information about yourself, we will make a donation in your honor to the CAC, which helps people in South Kansas City. So please do that. As for the global missions offering, we could give until last week, and our goal was $3,500, but believe it or not, we reached $7,365. So good job, Holmeswood. And I think you know global missions is just what it says. People working long-term around the world for the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship. So thank you, Holmeswoods, for that. Now, we're going to have some fun this Friday. We're going to have a skate party. Won't that be fun for all of us? It's going to be this Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. in the gym. We're going to have pizza and roller skating and games, and it's free and open to the public. Roller skates and a limited number of skate walkers will be available. Now, I don't know what a skate walker is, but I would probably need a skate wheelchair if I was going to roller skate with you all. That would be, something picture taking. So if anybody takes a picture of what a skate walker is, let me know. I'd like to see that. Personal skates and rollerblades are allowed, and we can't wait to see everybody there. I think that's it for our big announcements, so welcome again, and let us worship our all-inclusive Lord. Thank you.
That we will all, that the whole creation will be whole, that the whole creation will be whole, that we'll care for the earth, that the rivers will run clean, that the sky will be clean, that we won't keep raping all the resources out of the earth, that in the way that we talk about Ubuntu, a human is a human through other humans, that when there's a hungry child in Detroit, or if they're shooting people in Laos, my stomach is growling and I'm grieving the loss of life, that we are inextricably connected and that we know that profoundly is God's dream, that people get to be who they are, love who they love, wear what they want, and we celebrate that. We just go, oh, look at that amazing diversity. And God's going, yep, I did that. Look at me. Yep, I did it. Yeah. Right, and I'll do it again. I think she wants to be loved and wants us to bask in the delight of each other. Yeah. And I think we can participate in it because it's easy. That's easy. There's so much hard, but it's easy to notice. It's easy to notice the beauty of another person and be mystified by the miracle that is them. Jim Loder, one of my professors, used to say, love is the non-possessive delight of the unique particularity of the other. The non-possessive delight of the unique particularity of the other. I think that's how God feels about us. Like, I mean, if there is a God, God could boss us around better, you know? But I think there is a God, and this God is more like, I'm gonna walk you up to this beautiful bounty of diversity in creation and say, don't you love it like I love it? And I think God dreams that we will, that the answer will be yes.
Stand, step by step. Oh God, you are my God, and I will ever praise you. Oh God, you are my God, and I will ever praise you. I will seek you in the morning, and I will learn to walk in your way, and step by step will lead me, and I will follow you all of my days. You are my God, and I will ever praise you. Oh God, you are my God, and I will ever praise you. I will seek you in the morning, and I will learn to walk in your way, and step by step you'll lead me, and I will follow you all of my days. I will seek you in the morning, and I will learn to walk in your way, and step by step you'll lead me, and I will follow you all of my days. By our love, brothers, let us come together, walking in the Spirit. There's much to be done. We will come reaching out from our comfort, and we will know us by our love. Sisters, we were made for kindness. We can lead to darkness as He shines through us. We will be reaching with a song of healing, and they will know us by our love. The time is now. The church arise. Love with His hands, see with His eyes, binding around you and they will know us by our love.
Not with me? Good morning. How are you guys today?
Good.
I'm so glad to see you here, even though it's so cold outside. Come on, Charlotte. So, I want to talk about names.
Sorry.
Each of you has a very special name, don't you? I've heard that the sweetest sound is the sound of our own names. Doesn't it feel good when someone remembers your name? Yeah, it does. Did you know, Miriam, that God knows your name?
I knew that.
You knew that, Audrey? Yeah. Did you know that, Hayden?
And
What about you, Owen?
And Charlotte knows.
And Charlotte, I know. Names are very, very important to God. There's actually several times in the Bible when God called someone by name. In the book of Exodus, he called to Moses from the burning bush. We've all heard that story. And in the book of Luke, Jesus called Zacchaeus by name, telling him to come down from a tree. One of my favorite stories is actually about a boy named Samuel. Do you want to hear that story?
Yeah.
All right, we'll tell it real quick.
I think we've heard it before.
You've heard it, you probably have heard it before.
Have I?
So Samuel's mom, her name was Hannah. She wanted a son more than anything. So she prayed and promised God that if he gave her a son, she would give him back to the Lord. And so God answered Hannah's prayers and gave her a baby boy that she named Samuel. And she kept her promise to God. When Samuel was old enough, Hannah took him to the temple, or the church, and she presented him to Eli. And Samuel worked in the temple with Eli. One night when he was asleep, when Samuel was sleeping, he heard someone call his name. And so he got up and ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." And Eli said, "I didn't call you, go back to bed." So Samuel went back to bed and went back to sleep. But he heard someone call his name again. He ran back to Eli and said, "I'm here, you called me." And Eli said, "No, I didn't call you, go back to bed." A third time it happened, and Samuel ran back to Eli and said, "I'm here, you called me." Finally, Eli realized that it was God calling Samuel. And so he told Samuel to go and lay back down, and if he heard his name again, not to get up, but to say, "Speak, Lord, I'm listening." So Samuel went back to bed, and sure enough, again he heard the voice of God calling his name, "Samuel, Samuel." This time, Samuel answered and said, "Speak, for your servant is listening." Have you guys heard that story before? God knew Samuel's name.
Yes.
Some people think that only grown-ups are called by God, but Samuel was just a young boy. God knows each of your names just as he knew Samuel's name. And he still calls boys and girls today. He says, "Come, follow me." So we always need to listen and say, "Here I am, Lord. What can I do to serve you?" Can we pray? Let's make prayer hands. Dear God, today we're listening for your call. Perhaps you have something special for us to do. When you call, we will answer, "Here I am." Amen.
If one there listens, then one also hears. And I've a tale to rouse your deepest fears. Listen well, or ye body turned the Karen, as it did the Reverend David and his fair lass Erin. For it was a dark and stormy night, as the couple drove their truck up the muddy driveway to their new purchase, the mansion of the Abner Crawfords. But such ancient homes have had many occupants, and so their memory is long and their pain is deep. Now, I would imagine the scenario that you would hear me tell a story like that would be around a campfire, maybe a dark room, to hearken in the time of Halloween. And to that guess, I would say that you are absolutely wrong. The telling of the ghost story at Halloween is an American tradition we have recently brought to Western civilization. For hundreds of years before our country was even founded, the telling of the ghost story was done at Christmas time. And just this past Christmas, I participated with my ancient brethren in the hearing of such tales. Now, of course, you may be asking yourself, Daniel, why are you talking about ghost stories in church? They don't have anything to do with one another. Well, if you truly believe that and think that way, I would caution that you're holding your faith back. For there is a ghost story in the Bible. If you don't know where it is, come find Reverend David or myself and we'll tell you where it is. But the ghost story can teach you some things about faith. And the two big principles I want to lay out before you, they go hand in hand with each other. The first one is that there are things we can't handle on our own. The protagonist in the ghost story is beset by whatever malevolent entity there is, and the person can't deal with it, hence the element of terror. The second thing is that many ghost stories offer moments of respite. You can breathe a sigh of relief because maybe the specter is forming, maybe the shadows are falling, but then somebody says something, walks into the room, turns on a light, opens the window, whatever it is. And then for that moment, you can sigh, nothing bad's going to happen quite yet. And so in this new year of 2024, I would encourage you to apply these principles to yourself if you can. For how many of us have deep pain about something or have a physical pain of something? There's a deep sorrow in our lives caused by whatever it is. You have a deep sorrow, anger, you're fighting an addiction, you have great nervousness, stress, anxiety about work, life, society, the state of the world. And that can press in upon you if you don't deal with it until at night you're huddling in your bed, afraid that the thing's going to reach out from under the bed and grab you and drag you to the depths. But I would encourage you to take the two principles of the ghost story and apply them to your life. First, recognize that pain, sorrow, nervousness, anxiety, whatever it is, you can't deal with it by yourself or you would have dealt with it already. So go and reach out for help. Find a coworker, colleague, somebody to help you with the anxiety at work. Go find a friend, a reverend, somebody sitting next to you, a loved one, family member, whomever, to help you deal with whatever pain or affliction you're dealing with. And also come to God. Remember, what is Jesus' promise? What does he tell us to do? Come to me, all ye who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Seek the rest that God freely offers to all of us. And through that, help to deal slowly with whatever specter afflicts you. And then you can see your faith grow into something that perhaps you never thought it would grow into.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
Well, good morning to you. Good morning to those of you who are physically here. Good morning to those of you who are engaged online. And good morning to the spirits who might be here in this space. It is so good to be here with you. If you are physically here, and if you are a fifth grader and under, leave it open like that. You're invited to meet with Mr. Michael and Miss Marion in the gathering space during this quick moment. There's going to be a project, an assignment, an invitation that you are invited to participate in, and that will be laid out to you when you're out there. And for anybody that is sixth grade and older, whether you are here or online, it's cold outside, and I recognize that. My understanding is the kickoff last night started at -4 degrees, something like that. These Alabama bones don't do well in -4 degrees. Let me also, this is a quick good reminder to you that at Holmeswood, our default on Sunday mornings for worship is we're going to be open. We're going to have worship. And as long as one leader can physically get here, we're going to have some type of worship service. Now, just because we're open doesn't mean that you have to be here. So no matter what your responsibility is, if you feel unsafe, overly anxious, or if you want to stay home, stay home. But we are going to default with being open. And in fact, I was reminded that this is now my 8th year as senior pastor, and over the 8 years, we've not had worship one time. And that was this weekend in 2019, because the entire neighborhood did not have electricity. Beyond that, we're going to have service. So if you don't hear a formal communication from the church staff saying that the service is canceled, know that we're going to have it. Is that a good, PSA, public service announcement reminder? Today, we will continue our series, beginning this new year, entitled Interruptions. It's no secret, no matter how well-defined and planned out your life is, how well-defined your week is, how well-defined your day is, there are going to be interruptions. It is not going to go exactly as you planned. And sometimes, maybe even more than we like to or aware of, there are divine opportunities for us to re-engage, to recalibrate, to re-center our soul to the awareness of the goodness of Christ who is here in the midst of these interruptions. And so today we're going to hear a story in which Jesus has been teaching, he's been preaching, he's been going around the area proclaiming the message and reimagining the ways of God. And there are divine interruptions from small children. So Mark tells the story this way in Mark chapter 10, verses 13 through 16. Now the crowds, the people, the area around them, they were bringing little children to Jesus in order that Jesus might touch them, which is to say that Jesus might heal them. And the disciples, those close followers of Jesus, they spoke sternly to the parents and to the children. But when Jesus saw the disciples getting on to the crowd, saying, "Leave him alone," Jesus was indignant And that's the only time that the word indignant is used to describe Jesus in the Gospels. Jesus is upset, he is bitter, he is mad at the disciples, and he sternly spoke to them saying this, "Let the little children come to me, and do not stop them, for it is such as these that the realm of God belongs. Truly I tell you, who does not receive the kingdom of God as a little child will never enter into it." And then Jesus took up the children into his arms, and he laid his hands on them, and he blessed each and every one of them. Jesus was teaching. He was preaching. He was filling out, he was completing the schedule that he had planned out for the day. And then unbeknownst to him, unprepared, the crowd started bringing interruptions into his teachings. And Jesus had a choice. Do I continue teaching, following the manuscript, or do I pay attention to the interruption that is happening right in front of me? Robert Kelly is a professor of international relations at a university in South Korea. In March of 2017, before the times of COVID, Kelly found himself in an online interview with the BBC. Kelly was there in his home office, and he was interacting and engaging with a newscaster somewhere in the England area. And they were in the midst of a very healthy debate with one another, going back and forth about the social and the political realms of South Korea. And everything was going just according to plan until this happened.
Scandals happen all the time. The question is, how do democracies respond to those scandals?
And what will it mean for the wider region? I think one of your children has just walked in. I mean, shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change?
I would be surprised if they do. Pardon me. Pardon me. My apologies.
What's this going to mean for the region?
Now, it's one thing to be in the midst of a finance meeting for the church and have a child come up on screen. It's another thing altogether when you are on a news station broadcast around the entire world and your child interrupts the interview. I suspect that when Kelly was going through that, preparing for that day, and when his kids jumped into his office, I suspect he was reminded of that 15th century mantra, children should be seen and not heard. And actually, I suspect as he was embarrassingly going to bed that night, maybe he would have rechanged the whole phrase altogether. Maybe in that moment he would have said, children should neither be seen nor heard. And I wonder if that's how the disciples felt in the story in the Gospel of Mark. Why it doesn't take a whole lot of imagination to step into the shoes of the apostles and quickly see exactly where they are coming from as they were shooing the children away from Jesus. You see, Jesus and the disciples had recently traveled to the area of Judea, and Jesus has been teaching and preaching. He's been going around the crowds, and wherever he goes, the crowds are pressing in on him. There are large crowds. There are lots of people. And then this day, Mark says, all of a sudden, there's this great gaggle of parents, and they start bringing the children to Jesus so that he might touch them. Now that phrase, touch them, is a curious phrase. Whenever Jesus touches someone, he's either blessing them or he's healing them. So these aren't just some small children. These are children who just very well might be filled with illness, with disease, who are deeply sick. And again, it's not just one child, no, it's a whole gaggle of them. And children at this time, when you look at the society, they are at the bottom end of the totem pole. They don't contribute much of anything to society. Now, it doesn't mean that the parents don't love them, because as you see, the parents are bringing the children to Jesus, but until the children can start contributing to the family and contributing to society, they are a liability. They are just another mouth to eat. to feed. And so it doesn't take a lot of, yeah, gosh, I hope they're not eating the children. So it doesn't take a lot of imagination for the disciple to enter into the shoes of the disciples and say, when he tells them, be quiet. Be quiet. Jesus is doing his work right now. Jesus is teaching. He's doing divine things. Take your children to the hospital. Take your children to the clinic. Jesus is working right now. Go away from him. And as a working parent this past week, I get it. This was a really hard week. In fact, I was having flashbacks of 2020 and 2021 with COVID-19. Working at home, trying to navigate various searches for pastoral staff positions here at the church, administering the administrative responsibilities of the church, preparing for a sermon, while at the same time having a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old regularly pop into my office. Dad, what are you doing? Dad, come play Uno with me. Dad, read me a book. Oh, and in case you don't know, Darcy is starting to move around a little bit. No longer can I just sit her in the middle of the room and she stays. I've got to keep a watchful eye on her. And what I was internally, if I can admit, internally the narrative in my head that was saying to me is I wanted to say to my girls, don't you get it? I'm busy right now. I'm working. I'm stressed. There are responsibilities that can't get done unless I do it. Just go away for a moment. And what I realized is that this ethos of the disciples is not some theoretical thing that is in the pages of my scripture. No, it was actively living inside of me. So I get it. But then about Thursday, as the week was ending, I finally had to ask the question, what is my most important work? At the end of the day, what am I really called to do? Am I ultimately called to be the pastor of this church and make sure the doors stay open? Or am I ultimately called to show and embody love to my children? You see, Jesus refused to be fazed by the interruptions of the children. Jesus refused to push aside these little ones who were at the bottom rung of society. Sure, it interrupted his teachings. Sure, he had to alter his plans for the day. Sure, it delayed the lessons that he was offering to the crowds. But maybe Jesus is aware of something that I regularly forget. And maybe you forget as well. Because it seems as if the interruptions that Jesus encounters are the actual ministry that Jesus does. And maybe that's a clue for you and me. Maybe it is in the interruptions that God is inviting each of us to recalibrate our awareness to the most important work of loving our neighbor. Because it seems to me that it is in the thin spaces of interruptions when someone yearns to be seen that Jesus does his best work. Have you noticed that? When you flip through the pages of the Gospels, most of the recordings of Jesus in the scriptures are not word for word what Jesus taught. It's not those actual cognitive lessons. But a lot of the stories, most of the stories are of what Jesus actually did. Yes, there are teachings of Jesus. That's the Sermon on the Mount, things like that. But so many times the gospel writers tell the story in which, quote, Jesus sits down to teach, but the lessons themselves are not recorded. What is told is when someone out of place interrupts these teachings, and time after time, Jesus stops what he is doing and focuses on the one who is calling out to him. And this day, in Mark's story, it is no different at all. Jesus scoops up each of these cast-offs, each of these diseased and sick children, And Jesus cradles them in his arms and offers the healing embrace. Jesus doesn't just hold them. Jesus doesn't just heal them. No, he even takes it a step further. He declares to everyone who is around him, to such as these does the realm of God belong. To these diseased, these cast off, these low totem pole folk. What does Jesus see in these infected, pushed aside kids that he wants you and me to see? What do they have that I have lost? Maybe it's something like this. It seems as if we as adults make all of these things so complicated. You and I, we create systems and theologies. We create explicit and implicit guidelines that determine what is important, what is worth our time, who is worthy and who is not. And then all of a sudden comes along a person who doesn't fit the group, maybe something like a group of children, and they don't fit the mold. They really don't have much to offer to help keep the cog of the machine going. They don't really know what we are doing, and they're not able to contribute much at all. And yet there is Jesus again, patient, yet persistent, ready to teach the lesson to us one more time. Those people, the one you are shooing away, they belong to me. And you need to pay attention. The realm of God belongs to them. You see, God's realm, God's way belongs to the weak, to the ill, to the cast off, to the most vulnerable. And if this is true, what does that do for how we interact and live in the world today? Because God's empire is like no other empire that we have ever heard of. Empires, after all, are built through power. From the Roman Empire to the American, it is muscles and brains and hard work and vibrant industries and growing economies and strong militaries that build kingdoms. But God's way, God's realm, God's empire doesn't belong to the strong, but it belongs to the weak. It doesn't belong to the powerful, but to the powerless. Not the ones who portray that they have it all together, but to the ones who know they cannot go any further without any help. And so they call out and they climb up into the lap of the one who is in front of them. Truly, God's kingdom is a different kind of kingdom than you and I have ever experienced. And this is what we see and we hear in children. You see, it's not about kids in particular, but it's also not about kids. Children help remind us as adults about trust, about hope, about love and dependence. And we only see those lessons if we pay attention, if we see them, if we hear them. They remind us more fully of who we are and who God is. As a church, as a faith community at 97th and Holmes, when we gather in this space each week, we do work. This is part of our work. Worship is part of our work. And it's so easy to become solely focused on the work that we are doing that we lose sight of the sacredness of the Christ who is in our midst. These children are reminders of everyone who interrupts our lives and calls out to be seen and to be heard. It's so easy for us to teach the kids, stay in the pew, be quiet, shh, hush. It's so easy to become focused on the work that we lose sight of the goodness that is here. But when we push them aside, when we push anyone aside, we are simultaneously pushing the call of Christ aside. Can I tell you a secret? One of my most sacred spaces and experiences that I do each week doesn't happen behind here. Doesn't happen there. It happens before and after the service when I'm making the rounds and a small one runs down the aisle to give me a high five. During the time of response, when I'm standing either over here or over here, and one of my girls runs and jumps in my arms. What are they saying? What am I saying? It's funny. I try as best as I can to communicate with a returned high five or with a hug that they are loved, that they are worthy of my attention, that they don't contribute much to the workings of the goings on of this church, but they are vitally important. But just as much as I try to communicate to them, I myself also receive even more from them through their encouragement, through their embrace, through their joy. What are they saying to me with their presence? What do these people who are not able to contribute much to the goings on of life, what are they saying to each of us with their curiosity, with their wonder, with their embrace, with their joy? What are they saying to us with their interruptions? You see the signs? You are loved. Do you love me? Those of you who have eyes, may you see. And those of you who have ears, may you hear.
God of the city, please stand. You're the God of the city. You're the King of this people. You're the Lord of the nation. You are. You're the light in the darkness. You're the hope of the hopeless. You're the peace of the restless. You are. There is no one like our God. There is no one like our God.
But greater things have yet to come,
And greater things are still to be done in the city. Greater things have yet to come, and greater things are still to be done in this city. You're the God of this city. You're the King of these people. You're the Lord of the nation. You are. You're the light in this darkness. You're the hope in the hopeless. You're the peace to the restless. You are. There is no one like our God. There is no one like our God. For greater things have yet to come, and greater things are still to be done in the city. Greater things have yet to come, and greater things are still to be done in the city. Greater things are yet to come, and greater things are still to be done. Greater things than like our God. There is no one like our God. For greater things is yet to come, and greater things are still to be done in the city. Greater things have yet to come, and greater things are still to be done in this city. Greater things have yet to come, and greater things are still to be done in the city.
Go ahead and have a seat. During this time of response, if you're here physically, you're invited to bring your tithes and offerings to the front. If you're online, you're invited to use the QR code. There's also going to be another opportunity for you to respond, and you'll notice the sheet, if you're physically here, in the yellow sheet in your bulletin. Dr. Patch, you want to give instructions for this? So as you're responding, you can respond with the sheet and bring your offerings to the front.
All right, so we had that sheet that we started to fill out at the beginning of the service, and it was all about the ways that we individually experience God and God's creation, right? I had this conversation with David earlier this week on the phone, and if you're not aware, I live on a farm, and we don't have any large animals. We have bees, and we have 11 acres that have been turned into natural Kansas prairie, and we have beekeepers that come onto our land, and one hive has 50,000 bees, and we have 10 of those, and it's the most mind-boggling thing you've ever experienced. And each little bee is like a synapse in a brain. So the entire hive, with all these little bees put together, have a higher consciousness that they can communicate through. It's incredibly fascinating. And it's when we got the bees on the property, it was one of the very first ways on our new property that I felt I'm experiencing something that is greater than myself. I'm experiencing the technical aspects of creation right here. And it's incredible what we get to experience. But then I thought, David needs to come over and bring his family and see the bees. He needs to see them, how they leave the field, and one by one, they circle around to the bird bath, and then one by one, they go from the bird bath to another fountain that I've created, and they all are stacked up on this fountain, putting water on their backs and flying back to the hive, and not a single one of them bumps into each other. And out of 50,000 bees per hive, that one bee gets back to the correct hive. And then it flaps its wings, and it turns the whole hive into a swamp cooler. Fascinating. I could go on for hours. My point is, there are ways that we can experience God, and we can experience all that he brings us. There are other times that we have the opportunity to share with others God's creation. And so the second question, the other side of your sheet, is no longer, what can I do? What is my experience of creation? And the question's up above if you want to write it in there. What are 3 ways you can help others live in and help others experience God's dream? Are you going to show them the fantastic technical creation that is a bee or a hummingbird? Or are you going to make a meal and share your gift with everybody at the table? There are lots of ways that we show love of God through us. And so this is an opportunity for you to think for a moment, what are some ways that I can be an expert. I don't know much about bees, but I can act like I know a lot about bees. What are ways that I can show others God's creation?
When I wander through the desert and I'm longing for my home, all my dreams have gone astray. When I'm stranded in the valley and I'm tired and all alone, Abe sings life, I've lost my way. I go run into your mountain, where your mercy sets me free. You are my strong tower, a shelter over me. Beautiful and mighty, everlasting King. You are my strong tower, a fortress when I'm weak. Your name is true and holy, and your face is all I see. In the middle of the darkness, in the midst of all my fear, you're my refuge and my hope. When the storm of life is raging and the thunder's all I hear, you speak softly to my soul. I go run into your mountain, where your mercy sets me free. You are my strong tower, a shelter over me. Beautiful and mighty, everlasting King. You are my strong tower, a fortress when I'm weak. Your name is true and holy, and your face is all I see. And your face is all I see.
It's good to see you. It's good to, I've been throughout the service, I've been scrolling through the various feeds, and I see those of you whose names pop up on the social media feed for worship today. If you're here and you need to turn to your tithes and offerings, you can do so as you walk out. As a reminder, tomorrow is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Go serve, go love, change the world in some kind of a way, make it a better place through love tomorrow. The church offices will be closed, so if you come up here, well, you'll meet a locked door, unless you got a key, then you can come in. I strongly suspect your week is not going to go exactly as planned. There's going to be someone who is going to come and interrupt your schedule, your day, your life. Pay attention. Be aware. Open yourself. Let others be seen and heard just as you are seen and heard. May all of us go in peace. Amen.